friends, Vika here. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I've recently read, and these include The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Chbosky, Scythe by Neal Shusterman, and Mistborn by Sanderson. And I'm going to be talking them probably in this order, and if you want to just skip to a specific book you just want to hear about, I'll link the timestamps in the description below. So without further ado, let's talk about The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Chbosky. So I gave this book like a 3.5 out of 5 stars, and the reason for that is, well, first I'll go into what this book is about. So this book is about a boy named Charlie. He's starting his freshman year of high school, and he's gone through some traumatic events. He's been out of school for a year, and so he's going back in, and what he's doing is he's writing his experiences throughout freshman year in the form of letters to a person. And so you're just going to follow him throughout the year, and he writes about what happens. And this book covers a lot of very different topics, and it's not very long. It's like 200 pages, and it's pretty petite. It's like the size of my face. But it covers a lot, and the reason for that is one of the reasons why I gave this maybe 3.5 stars out of 5 instead of something higher is because it does cover a lot of social issues, including like classism, racism, any kind of ism you can think of, abuse, both sexual and physical and emotional. So I guess all three, not both, and just a lot of different issues and serious topics. It does take place in the 90s, 1992, 91 specifically, and Charlie is a socially awkward person and whatnot, but it covers a lot, and it's short, and so it kind of felt like this book bit off more than it could chew. I kind of would have preferred if it went into 1 or 2 major issues and delved deeper, but it was just like touched on like everything, and it just felt like touch and go, essentially. And I feel like I would have preferred if he went more into depth. And Charlie is also a very socially awkward person, and so that makes him, as a narrator and a writer, kind of cringy at times to go through. So this is a coming of age story, and I'm not the biggest fan of coming of age, so that might have gone into my bias in my rating, but 3.5 stars is still a good rating, and it has some really good messages, I think. But that being said, it is very crude, and I would not recommend this for a younger audience. Also, so since the writing is Charlie, a freshman boy in high school who is like socially awkward, adjusting to the novel takes some time in the beginning, because it seems like it's literally sounds like how a freshman boy would write. And so it's kind of hard to get through and adapt, but once you do become really attached to Charlie's character and his development and all of the other characters as well. You want to see what happens, you're intrigued. Just get through, it's just adapting is the hard part, and it's not very long. It's a very quick read, and the chapters per se, there's not really chapters. There's parts, but there's not really chapters. Is just each of the letter he writes. It's like a different day, a different week, or whatnot. And yeah, there's a lot that is covered in this book, which is great, like I said, but I just maybe would have preferred if it was more dug up more. But also, I have seen the movie, which is one of my favorites. The writer of the book actually like wrote the screenplay for it and also helped produce it and direct it. So it's a really, really good adaptation, I would say. Logan Lerman, he's bae. I've had the biggest crush on him since watching this movie back in like sophomore year of high school. I haven't watched it since. I'm gonna rewatch it now. But like looking back, at the time when I had watched the film, I was talking about it with my cousin, and she's like, maybe you should hold off on reading the book just because you are young, and I understand that now. So maybe I would have been prepared to read it, but I do recommend this for an older audience, and yeah, it's really good. The next book that I've recently read is Scythe by Neal Shusterman, and this is a dystopian novel set in like a very, very distant future where hunger is solved, death is solved, there's no war, there's no disease, there's no famine. I just said no hunger, so I guess no famine. But essentially, all the world's issues are solved, and it's like a peaceful society. However, in order to control the population, there are these people called scythes, and their job is to glean people, and they're the only people that are allowed to essentially kill a person. So people die, but there's a cure for death, essentially. And so if you were gleaned by a scythe, you were essentially dead forever. And so this follows Rowan and Citra, which are 2 people who are apprentices into becoming scythes. And it follows their journey, so it's dual personality. They each have their own voice, and and just a lot of political intrigue and just the intricacies of this society and just all of the social constructs and issues that arise when people no longer fear death and what happens if you put other people in charge of people's deaths. And it's a really cool premise. And I will say that it took me some time to get into this book. Like, I started it thinking it was just gonna be like just every other dystopian novel, but this book did surprise me, and just stick to it. It does take turns that I didn't expect, but then once they were happening, I was like, okay, I can see where this is going, and I felt it, and I really liked where this book ended up, and I thought my first impression of the book was very wrong. So if you're reading this and starting this and you're just like, this just like feels like every other dystopian novel, I do say just stick to it. Maybe get to like page 150 or so. That's kind of far, but it does start slow build. It's a very slow build, but then it escalates really quickly after that. What I did not like about the book, one of my biggest pet peeves of all time, insta love. You guys can guess, but hated that. It was just such a major focus of the novel that kind of like deterred. Like, it was important, I get it, but don't like that. I hate it, and that's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars instead of 4.5, I guess. But I have ordered the second book, and it should be coming on Tuesday, so I'm excited for that. I'll finish it eventually, and I'll let you know what it goes. But this was really good writing, and it was a very, very good analysis, I felt like. About all my thoughts. Let me know. I know this is a popular series, and let me know in the comments below what other people thought about it and if I missed anything. So last but certainly not least, I read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely loved it, adored it. Go read it. I'm gonna tell you why without spoiling too much, hopefully. So for 1,000 years, this tyrant has been ruling the lands. He's known as the Lord Ruler, and there's been a lot of oppression, there's been slavery, and a lot of racism and whatnot. And for 1,000 years, people have been trying to revolt with little success, yet hope survives. So a band of misfits, criminals, mislings, if you know, get together, and they're gonna try to overthrow the Lord Ruler once and for all. And that's all I will say. But the world building of this book is so intricate and so well thought out and developed, and it's so unique. I like just the whole magic system in general was so cool, where how it's done is people who possess power, if they ingest a specific metal, each metal has its own property. So like, teleportation, I guess, and flight and magnetism or whatever. If you ingest a certain metal, you'll have a certain power, and if you're a misling, you only have 1 power, and if you're misborn, you have all of them. You can essentially break down all of them. And so this book also dealt with a lot of different class issues and racism, and how it was done was very realistic, and I understood it, and all the characters were just so well thought out. You understood their motivations. They weren't perfect, they were flawed, and it was just so easy to follow. And I don't want to give away too much, but just read it. It's so good. I recommend it 100%. Almost anyone, even if you're not a fan of fantasy, I recommend it. It's not like high fantasy, it's like mid-level fantasy, It's good. It's good. And yeah, there were a few cliches in here, and like with the romance and whatnot, but that being said, I forgave it because just it was so easy to read, and it was just so entertaining along the whole ride, and I loved it so much, and I recommend this to anyone. So those are the books that I've recently read. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Some books that are coming up that I'm currently reading are A Wise Man's Fear, with the Royal Assassin. It's been a minute, I know. And also, we'll see. So just look forward to my next video. Again, just let me know what you thought of these books if you've read them. See you all soon. Bye now.